Hello, everyone. Welcome into Above My Pay Grade. If you're out there watching this, throw some comments in the chat. Let me know you can hear me. I have a couple stories to go over, but also wanted to answer your questions. This is kind of an impromptu live stream if y'all are around. So, one of the stories I wanted to go over is food stamps. Now, I've said before on this channel, um, we don't live in the democracy that you think we do. And one of the reasons I say that is because a lot of these politicians will abdicate the responsibility, like Congress will abdicate the responsibility to these three-letter agencies, EPA, FDA, da 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 da. And they say, here's your realm of influence to these three-letter agencies, and they don't check in with them, and they kind of run amok, and they do all kinds of things that one would consider people didn't vote for. So the title of the article is Federal Food Stamp Program Hits Record Cost in 2022. This is another thing to think about when it comes to um, inflation. What goes up with inflation? All these things that aren't fixed costs, like um, medical. Like it's not like you the government with Medicare and Medicaid they go you're allotted this much money. They cover those costs regardless of what they are. And as inflation increases, that percentage of the budget that those take increases as well. And it's no different with food stamps. So reading from the article here, in early January, the Wall Street Journal editorial board warned that one peril of large administrative state is the mischief agencies can get up to when no one is watching. Now, why would no one be watching? Because Congress delegates their authority to these agencies and still collects a paycheck. Specifically, they highlight the overreach of the Agriculture Department, which expands food stamp benefits by evading the process for determining benefits and end running congressional review. So, how much has it increased? Well. Let's take a look. Okay. Exhibit A is the overreach. In fact, the cost of the federal food stamps program, known as a Supplemental Food Assistance Program, or SNAP, increased to a record $119 billion in 2022. And what is that rate of increase? In 2019, it was $60 billion. So it doubled. It doubled in 2 years. So in 2019, the average monthly per person benefit was $129.83. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, that's a 78% increase to $230.88. So these three-letter agencies essentially are getting contacted like by the Department of Agriculture and people who are involved there, and like, hey, we can make a cut of money if we run around Congress and give them more money to buy things that we could potentially get a cut of. I did a story on this in Ukraine, but it's these three-letter agencies that again are delegated responsibility by Congress, and Congress is like, okay, you're in charge of the SNAP benefits program, and we're not going to give you a cap on spending. We're not going to do any of that. You're in charge of that, and then come to us with the numbers, and they do. And what do you know? It goes up every year. All of this is a little odd. The number of people on food stamps remains at record highs, while the post-COVID lockdown employment picture has improved dramatically. Now, if you follow Nobody Special Finance, he's done some great videos on the actual numbers of employment and how they've the Bureau of Labor Statistics has drastically changed those. So we're making these calculations, and these like, okay, well, everyone's employed. Why are food stamps? Why are food stamp usage going up? Why is unemployment going up? Why is disability going up? The answer is the Bureau of Labor Statistics was uh, obfuscating the truth, and or I like to call that lying. Further reading. If any of this surprises you, you really shouldn't given that you it really shouldn't given that you the people voted for the welfare state. However, as Wall Street Journal chided, the abuse of the process doesn't get much clearer than that. And I'll link this in the article below. It probably doesn't surprise any of you that these federal programs are being abused, but my main concern is, hey, do you think so? We have this, and I have a video coming out a little later today about the debt ceiling and what happens if we don't raise it. But why that's such a political football is all these government programs, and there's massive amounts of them. they have to keep going up with inflation. And the nature of the business is, hey, we're going to grow, make it bigger, so on and so forth. So these agencies never shrink, they just continue to grow. And when the money doesn't, aka the debt ceiling, what happens? You're forced to cut. That's a good thing, in my opinion. A lot of economists think no, not so much. It's not a good thing. Um, I see two people are watching. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Um, in the live comments, I'd love to chat with you guys if you have any questions. I got um, one more story to show you guys here. I'm really adept at technology, as you can tell. I did a story on this, and this one's just I just want you guys to think about it. More of you, if you're watching this and you go, what do you think of rent controls or price controls? Most people watch my channel are like, that's stupid. But the people you probably talk to are like, oh, kind of makes sense. Okay, rent's going up astronomically. But they fail to know why. Okay, so here's a huge issue. The Biden administration is coming out with federally mandated from executive order rent controls or tenant protections. And I want you to think about it this way. If you are a landlord and you cannot make a profit by raising the rents, how do you make a profit? You either cut costs or you raise the money coming in, right? So, okay, one option is taken off the table by the government. Thank you so much. In order to protect tenants. So, how do you cut costs? Now you have a line out the door of people who want to rent your place because it's below market rent, thanks to the government. So, you have to cut costs by not performing maintenance on the place, by not holding it up to standard. And then what do you care? George Hammond talked about this the other day. What do you care? Because you have a line out the door of potential tenants. So demand's not going to decrease for you. Demand's going to stay the same. So you can just have a dilapidated rust bucket jalopy of a rental, and people will always want to rent it. Look at any government housing, low income housing, Section 8 housing, not maintained very well. And there's a reason for that. So once again, economically illiterate people who caused the problem in the first place are giving you solutions that don't actually solve the problem. Not a huge surprise. But my point for you guys is, do you think more of this is going to happen as the dollar collapses or less? People are going to turn to the government more for help or less? The answer is more. And so more of these controls and top down like economic illiterate activity is going to happen. And so therefore, if you're thinking about investing, a huge risk is counterparty, and that counterparty is the government. Like what stupid thing are they going to come out with that's going to destroy profitability and the supply and demand curve in whatever industry you want to go into? But reading from this article on CNBC, I'll link it in the description. Renters across the USA, including trying to curb reading from the top here. Biden administration announced on Wednesday new actions to protect renters across the U.S., including trying to curb practices that prevent people from accessing homes and curtailing exorbitant rent increases in certain properties with government-backed mortgages. So that's a whole nother conversation, but government-backed mortgages, guess what? Cause the prices to go up. 30-year mortgages, and this isn't out of the question either. Government comes in and says, you know what we're going to do? We're going to federally back a 40-year mortgage. What do you think that'll do to home prices? The intent from the government will be, we want to lower the price of homes, but in reality, what will happen is the rent or the prices will go up just like they did over the last 2 years. And it's like, do they never learn? Unfortunately, we vote for it. This what channels like this and you guys sharing it out is so important because people don't know what they don't know, and so they think rent control, that's a good thing, but they don't understand what that actually will hurt tenants. So the question is, what is exorbitant? Who defines that? What is fair? Who defines that? And traditional capitalists will say the free market does, and competition does. And what the government says is, we will. That never works out. Okay. A blueprint for renters Bill of Rights was included in the announcement, it lays out a collection of principles for the federal government and other entities to take action, including access to safe, quality, accessible, affordable housing, and clear and fair leases. Again, as I am fond of saying, and Thomas Sowell says, the first rule of economics is scarcity, right? And the first rule of politics is to first forget about the first rule of economics. Everyone has the right to this. Everyone has it. No, they don't. Actually, they don't. It's not to say they should be living on the street and we shouldn't care for them, but I don't think that's the government's role at all. So I think that's the local community's role, families' role, churches' role, etc. Over 44 million households, or roughly 34% of the U.S. population, live in rental housing, according to the White House. As part of the Wednesday announcement, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, back to the three-letter agencies, is oh so helpful. They are oh so helpful, right? They're just think tanks of people who sit in a room and don't live in the real world. So the Federal Housing Finance Agency and federal mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac say that they will look into the possibility of establishing tenant protections that limit egregious rent increases. Why did rent increase, folks? You know. We did rent moratoriums and put landlords out of business and made it hard for them to kick them out, and they couldn't make a profit, and we pumped the economy full of money, and we lowered interest rates. All government. It's just, it is excruciatingly annoying. Okay. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development also said it will move towards requiring certain rental property owners to provide at least 30 days notice if they plan to terminate the lease of a tenant due to non-payment of the rent. That would be in the contract. You don't pay, so they would be aware of that already. The agency will award $20 million for the Eviction Protection Grant Program, which will fund nonprofits and government agencies to provide legal assistance in low-income tenants at risk of eviction. Although the steps announced by the Biden administration are historic, they won't solve the U.S. housing crisis. What needs to be addressed is the deeper issue, she said, is building more affordable housing and creating permanent emergency and universal rent assistance and establishing robust tenant protections. I tell you what, every single day, we see people, our country moving more towards socialism and communism. It's like government needs to provide, government needs to provide, government needs to provide. And it's probability, not a certainty, but I think there's going to be more of this. People are going to turn more towards the government and say, hey, please help, not knowing that the government actually caused the problem in the first place. All right, let's take a look at your questions. I only see a couple here, so if you guys do have any questions, see 5 of you guys are watching, drop them in the comments below, and let's take a look. Yeah. So Lucy B, Princess Consuela Banana Hammock, as I prefer to call you. That video of people and their car payments, I'm still in shock. Yeah. So if you didn't see, posted a YouTube short yesterday about these people work at a car dealership, and they have almost, I think everyone in the video had a car payment over $1,000. And just like our economy, our federal debt needs more debt to keep going, needs more liquidity, needs more money injected into the system. Individuals need that too. So as money pulls back, these people are going to be SOL. But yeah, everyone in the video had a over $1,000 car payment, which is just mind blowing. All right, last question here, unless you guys have any more. They always try rent controls and fiat is dying. Yeah, I think we're learning some people wake up later than others, but it's just human nature to turn to the government for more help, not understanding that they caused the problem. And I feel for a lot of these people because the government is so insidious in their control mechanisms and devaluing people's labor, and they're working twice as hard, it seems like, their parents. Like maybe you have kids and you have a spouse, and both you and your spouse have to work, and in your parents' generation they didn't have to, and they lived a better life than you, so they're just not getting why their labor is being devalued. All right, is that the last question? Anybody have any more questions before I end this live stream? Bueller. Bueller. All right, we'll leave it there. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in to this impromptu live stream. I'm going to do another one this week with a little bit more warning. And I have a video coming out tonight about what happens if we don't raise the debt ceiling, which is kind of interesting. So hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. If you guys can do me a favor, share my videos out. I feel like I'm being banned in the shadow variety because of some of the stuff I'm talking about. But hope you guys have a good Saturday. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.